Welcome back to the Six Pack Dad Tribe podcast. I'm Chris, I'm the GM of the tribe, and today I wanted to talk more about the difference between weight loss, fat loss, and body recomposition. So, I think a lot of people think of weight loss as primarily fat loss, but when you lose weight, it can actually be from various different things. Weight loss can come from water losses, it can come from fat loss, of course, and also muscle loss, depending on what you're doing with your diet, how you're living your lifestyle when you're losing weight. Weight loss can happen very acutely and can cause big swings on the scale. So, for instance, I could walk outside right now, it's summer in Florida, and I could sweat a ton and I would lose water weight via sweat. And I could come back 1 or 2 pounds lighter than I left to go on that walk. Those 2 pounds I lost does not mean that's fat. Again, it's just water leaving the body. And so again, the scale can be influenced by various different factors. And we need to understand that if we are in a weight loss journey, because again, not all weight loss is fat loss. Fat loss, of course, is when we just lose body fat. And fat loss compared to weight loss, it happens very, very slowly. You're not going to see massive drops in pure body fat on a day-to-day basis. Fat loss, especially if you're going about it the right way, happens very, very slowly. We're talking grams per day that slowly add up over time into, a pound per week or 2 pounds per week. So this can often be barely perceptible on the scale. A lot of my clients will get frustrated week to week because they're not seeing massive drops. And I think that's what we've been conditioned to think is going to happen in a weight loss journey just from seeing stuff online, 30 pounds in 30 days. Those are crazy rates of fat loss. And I think that's what we expect. But again, it's really a slow process. And because the scale is fluctuating for a variety of reasons on any given day, that can often mask the progress we're actually making it even harder to see the fat loss that is happening. So, understanding how our body weight fluctuates, we need to understand water weight fluctuations. Your body is 50 to 60% water, and various different things can affect whether or not we lose or gain water weight on a day-to-day basis, and therefore whether or not the scale goes up or goes down on a daily basis. So anything that affects our water weight is going to acutely affect the scale. And so this is how you can better interpret what you're seeing on the scale day to day. A lot of my clients are, they'll wake up one morning and they'll be a couple pounds up and they'll be freaking out like, well, I was consistent yesterday. What's going on? Again, that's almost undoubtedly due to water weight fluctuations because of the three things you see on your screen here: water intake, carb intake, sodium intake. So for instance, let's say you are dehydrated. You're going to be down because you're going to have less water in your body. Again, that does not mean you've lost fat on the scale. It means you're just not drinking enough water. Carb intake. Let's say you are dieting and then you suddenly eat a ton of carbs that you have not been eating. A good way to understand how carbs affect the body is where carbs go, water goes. So if you eat a ton of carbs that you have not previously been eating, your body's going to basically suck that up, those carbs, and with it goes water, and you're going to store a bunch of water, and that's going to shoot your weight up temporarily. So that's why my client could be, consistent one day, wake up the next day, they're 2 pounds up. They just maybe ate more carbs than they typically did do yesterday. The opposite can also happen. This is very true when people start a diet. They are used to eating a very high carb diet. They decrease their calories, they decrease their refined carbohydrate intake, and suddenly they've lost 5 pounds their first week. Again, where carbs go, water goes. So when you are cutting carbs, you're losing carbs from your body, water's going with it. That results in bigger changes on the scale initially in a fat loss phase. Again, it's not all fat. A lot of that is water. Sodium intake can also have the same effect in both ways. So let's say you are have a normal amount of sodium, and then one day you just have a ton of processed food, a ton of sodium. Sodium's going to cause you to hold on to water. And then let's say that you're just not eating enough sodium. You could have problems in the other direction. And electrolytes as a whole, your body's always maintaining an electrolyte balance. Anything that throws that off is going to swing your weight in both directions. So something to know is that a pound of water is equal to about 1.92 cups. And so this is very important to know because let's say you forgot to weigh in right when you wake up in the morning. And let's say you were down half a pound. from the previous week, which is a decent drop in body fat. But you went out in your kitchen and you drank a cup of water, and then you went back. You're like, oh shoot, yeah, I forgot to weigh in. And you go weigh in. You just obscured that half pound you lost via just one cup of water. And again, this is why it's so fat loss is so imperceptible sometimes, and it's so frustrating because it's happening at a slow rate, and little things can throw off the scale. So that's why understanding water weight fluctuations is so important. So how do you know if you're losing fat or weight? So weight loss, again, as we talked about, can fluctuate day to day. Again, if depending on if you have cut carbs recently or, significantly increased your sodium intake, again, these changes are happening in the day to day. Fat loss happens week to week. And so one thing I like a lot of my clients to do is look at your weekly average because again, it's going to go up, it's going to go down for various reasons. But if you're going down over time, you know you're losing body fat. So we in the tribe like to preach that trends matter than the day to day and even the week to week. Are you trending down over the course of a month? That's, better indicative of you losing body fat than the day to day, even the week to week. Know that, as I talked about earlier, early on in a diet, you are going to lose a lot of water weight in addition to fat loss. So numbers will be bigger early on. So we often see in the tribe people come in, first 2 weeks, they're losing 3 to 5 pounds, and two of those pounds are probably fat. And then the other three or so is water weight. And then they settle into a 1 to 2 rhythm after those first 2 weeks. Again, that's just water losses from reducing your calories and your carbohydrates specifically. So, how do you lose weight? Anyone can lose weight. I say this all the time. Few people know how to lose body fat, and few people know how to body recomp. So we're going to talk more about that later. But if you wanted to lose weight, slash your calories to crazy amounts, do long fasts over 24 hours, cut your carbs down to keto levels. We're talking less than 50 grams per day. That's how you could lose a lot of weight really quickly. But that doesn't mean you're losing body fat, and that's an important difference. So if you are losing 3 pounds plus per week, that is too fast of weight loss, and you are likely losing more weight than you are losing body fat, meaning you're losing muscle, and you're losing a lot of water weight. Again, that is not a good thing. This slide is not actually advice; it's a warning. Again, we see in pop culture 30 pounds in 30 days. That's a pound per day. You're going to lose a lot of muscle. That's not good. That's not going to improve how you look. It's not healthy. So we want to avoid this. So how do you lose fat? To lose primarily fat, which is what everyone wants. When they say they want to lose weight, people want to lose body fat. No one wants to lose muscle. You want to be in a modest calorie deficit, meaning eating less than you burn each day. So we want to sustain a good sustainable rate is about around 500 to 1,000 calorie deficit. So again, that's 500 to 1,000 calories under your maintenance level calories. And so for most men, their maintenance calories are anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 calories per day, depending on how active you are, depending on how big you are, how much muscle mass, all of that. High protein. Protein is going to help you hold on to your muscle tissue. And so if you're eating around 1 gram per pound of goal body weight, that's going to help signal to your body to hold on to that muscle mass that you already have and give it the protein it needs to support those structures. This is also important on top of protein. If you want to hold on to muscle mass, you need to strength train all your major muscle groups each week and ideally multiple times per week. So that's really important. You need those two because, again, the protein plus the strength training sends a signal to your body to hold on to muscle mass and to, when you are losing weight, lose primarily body fat. And a good, healthy, sustainable rate of fat loss is around 1 to 2 pounds per week. And this is what most of our clients are maintaining and achieving in the tribe because we follow these above strategies. So why I get this question a lot. Why does it seem like I'm losing muscle? Let's say you're doing everything right. You are in a modest calorie deficit. You're strength training. You're eating enough protein. People are still like, hey, my scale is telling me I'm losing muscle, or I feel like I'm losing muscle. My muscles are smaller. Just know again, if you're doing the right things, you are likely preventing all muscle loss. Again, there's sometimes even despite doing all the right things, you might lose a little bit. Again, what we're trying to avoid is big losses of muscle. They've done very interesting studies where they put people on identical diets where they're both losing weight, but they just vary the amount of protein they're giving those people. And low protein groups almost lose 50% muscle and 50% fat, whereas high protein groups lose let's say 80, 90% fat, 10% muscle or something like that. Again, there's a big difference there. So you might lose a little bit, but again, we're just trying to avoid a ton. And again, you can prevent most of it. But why does it still seem like you might be losing muscle? During a diet, you lose what's called muscle glycogen. Glycogen is stored glucose in your muscles. So when you eat carbs, they are broken down into glucose. Your body uses that and stores that, uses that as energy. But if it doesn't need it immediately, it stores it in your muscles in a basically a big conglomeration of glucose molecules called glycogen. And remember what I said earlier, where carbs go, water goes. And so glycogen holds on to a lot of water. When you cut calories and cut carbohydrates, your body starts using a lot of this stored glycogen. Glycogen gets broken down into glucose. Your body uses that for energy. With that, again, goes water. And so when you start a diet, you're going to lose a lot of water. It's going to come from your muscles because remember, glycogen is stored in your muscles where carbs go, water goes. So you had more muscle, you had more water in your muscles initially. Now that's left, and now your muscles are not as full. You have a decreased muscle fullness, and that's why it can seem like you're losing muscle, even though you're not. You're just losing water from your muscles. So body recomposition, a lot of y'all, when I introduced this topic, probably were like, what does that mean? Body recomposition means losing fat and gaining muscle. You're changing the composition of what you're made of. And I think this is ultimately what most people are looking for when they start any weight loss program. They're looking to transform their physique. They want to look more fit, athletic, lean. I hear that all the time. That is a combination of both fat loss and muscle gain because most people need to lose fat and gain muscle. Most people don't at baseline carry a ton of muscle. And so it's important that when you're approaching your transformation, you lose both body fat and then turn around and try to gain muscle. So the way that we do this in the Six Pack Down Tribe is we have a two-phase approach to body recomposition. And I think this is the best way to go about it because many people make the mistake of trying to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. And again, in pop culture, you hear this all the time. Lose X amount of fat and gain muscle at the same time. Again, you're kind of promised these extraordinary results, but at a physiological level, these are really opposite goals, and it just doesn't work. It's very rare to see people gain muscle and lose fat at the same time. Now, it's not impossible, especially if have never strength trained before or if you're super young, you could, in your strength training, doing all the right things, eating enough protein and dieting, you could lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time. But again, it really does not happen well for most people. And so and the reason they're opposite goals, the reason it really doesn't work is because in order to lose body fat, you need to eat less than you burn each day. In order to gain muscle, you typically need to eat more than you're burning each day because muscle growth means building up. It means building up things, and we need more materials to build that up. So we need to eat more. Again, fat loss is what we would call catabolic. It's breaking things down. We need to eat less in order to do that. So they're kind of opposite goals, and so it's best to approach one at a time because that'll enable you to maximize both. So body recomp happens best when you focus on fat loss first, muscle growth second. That's really, really important. So the way we do it in the tribe is phase one. It's all about losing body fat, but while maintaining muscle. So again, it's entirely possible to lose a lot of weight and that come from both body fat and muscle if you're not doing the right things. So in phase one, we're teaching people high protein, making sure they're staying active, making sure they're not cutting calories too steep. But the heavy focus is on nutrition because nutrition is going to help you lose body fat the best. Exercise is not something we over index in phase one because, again, we're just trying to maintain our muscle. We're not trying to do anything crazy. We're not trying to exercise our way into fat loss. Nutrition, again, is the biggest lever. We're going to be focused there, focused on protein. That way, you are losing primarily body fat. In phase two, this is where we ramp your calories back up to a really sustainable level. We're talking for most guys, it's around 2,500 calories per day. That's going to hold your weight and your body fat levels steady, but give you enough energy to start building muscle. And so now exercise becomes a lot more important. We have people on very structured, progressive strength training routines in phase two. Nothing crazy. It's typical. Most guys are working out 3 to 4 hours a week, 3 to 4 sessions, focusing on progression week to week. But exercise is a much bigger focus here. And the great thing is in phase two, people's nutrition is locked in. They have great habits. They're eating really healthy foods. They've changed their diet And so now it's actually way easier to maintain their nutrition because now they're eating more of what they were previously eating, and they don't have to worry about their food composition because again they've changed their habits at their core. And so they're not having a problem gaining back body fat in phase two because again their default is healthy foods. Now they're feeling more. We often get feedback in phase two that people feel like they're overeating, like that. And we actually have some people in phase two keep losing weight even though they're not trying to. They again they just have such solid habits that and now that they're giving their body more calories, they become like this metabolic furnace. They're just burning a ton of calories, and so some people we have to keep ratcheting their calories up to prevent them from losing weight. Good problem to have. But the cool thing about phase two is if we keep body fat levels steady, we keep your weight steady, but you start to gain muscle, you might gain a little bit of weight, but your body fat percentage continues to drop, even though your body fat levels are not actually changing. And the reason that is because now, as you gain muscle, body fat is now making up a smaller percentage of your total weight. And so again, in phase two, a lot of our guys are, staying the same weight, if not gaining a couple pounds more, but their body fat percentage continues to drop. And all while eating more and not dieting, but just focusing on strength training. It's a really sustainable, great place to be. It's much more enjoyable than a fat loss phase. And this is where long-term sustainability becomes a real possibility for people and again, it kind of blows our clients' minds. They get into phase two and they're like, whoa, I can eat like basically within reason what I want while still prioritizing protein and just focus on my 3 to 4 strength training sessions a week and keep losing body fat or just keep losing body fat percentage, gaining muscle. Like they're like, this is almost seems too easy. It really is. But again, that's contingent on going through a successful phase one first. So, what's a realistic time frame for this kind of transformation? In phase one, it's realistic to see about around 1 to 2 pounds of fat loss per week. So that equates to around 4 to 8 pounds of fat loss per month. So again, just take where you're at, how much body fat you have to lose, and figure out the months there. For most people, most guys in the tribe have anywhere from like 20 to 50 pounds to lose. This looks like around like 3 months to 6 months for most people. Then, once we get you down to a body fat percentage level of around 15%, that's where a lot of people feel really good. They're starting to see some muscle definition, a little bit of ab definition. They're feeling really, really good and healthy. That's a really good cue to switch them into phase two. And so again, that's kind of how we determine when to switch you over. You've hit that level, and now again, rather than just trying to cut calories further, keep losing weight to get you lower and lower, now we're going to do that through gaining muscle. Because again, remember that most people have a lot of body fat to lose and also a lot of muscle to gain. So we switch them into phase two and they start gaining muscle and still losing body fat percentage, even though their body fat levels might not be changing very much. Realistic muscle gain for most adult men, especially like we're talking like 40 plus, is around a half pound to 1 pound of muscle growth per month. If you were doing everything right to a T on paper, could you gain a little bit more, especially if you were a beginner? Yes, but again, we just don't really see it. You see 2 pounds of muscle growth per month, maybe a little bit more in like really young people who are like, prime hormonal environment. Again, when you're 40 plus, it's just not as ideal of an environment to be just stacking on muscle. So it's going to happen a little bit slower, just to be, super transparent, realistic. So half pound to a pound of muscle growth per month. So, over another 6 months. So let's say it took 6 months in the fat loss phase. Your next 6 months might look like 3 to 6 pounds of muscle gain. But again, that's a lot of muscle. That's a big change, especially if you're starting at 15% body fat. You might get down to 13, maybe 12% just from those additional pounds of muscle. And so to see this kind of transformation where you are getting lean, losing body fat, and then continuing to get leaner from there by gaining muscle, and this will fully transform your physique. You're looking at around a year of hard work. And that might seem like a lot, but again, we want a different outcome than everyone else. Everyone else wants the 30 days, 30 pounds, right? That's not real lasting change. You're gonna lose muscle. It's not sustainable. It's too rapid. If you extend your timeline here to a year plus, and thinking, okay, I'm going to continue, even after a year and after I achieve my goal, I'm going to continue doing this for the rest of my life. That's where this becomes sustainable, where you can actually make this kind of transformation and it stick long term is again letting this happen slowly over time in a realistic way, make real lasting change rather than quick fixes. So we're all against quick fixes in the tribe. If you want to transform your body composition, achieve the best physique of your adult life, this is how it's done, and this is how long it typically takes. But think, a 1 year sounds like a long time in terms of this, but a one year for anything else, that's quick. And so, I think just coming in with these expectations will really help. If you think I'm just gonna, buckle in and go hard for a year, again, you can change your life. And so, if you're looking for help, reach out and hope this helps.